On the morning of January 7, 2026, a residential street in South Minneapolis looked ordinary. Snow lined the curbs, cars moved carefully through narrow lanes. Neighbors stood outside their homes, watching something unusual unfold. Federal immigration officers were operating in the neighborhood. Within minutes, a woman would be dead. Her name was Renee Nicole Macklin Good. She was 37 years old, a mother of 3, a writer, a U.S. citizen. Her death would become part of a much larger story about immigration enforcement, the use of force, and the power of the federal government on local streets. Renee Good was not known to law enforcement. She was born in Virginia and studied creative writing at Old Dominion University. In 2020, she received the university's Poetry Prize. On social media, she described herself in simple terms: a poet and writer, and wife and mom. In recent years, Renee had been a stay-at-home mother. Earlier in her life, she worked as a dental assistant. As a young adult, she participated in Christian youth mission trips to Northern Ireland. She had 3 children, ages 15, 12, and 6. Her second husband, Timmy Macklin Jr., died in 2023. In 2025, Renee moved to Minneapolis with her wife, Becca Good. They lived just blocks from the street where Renee would later be killed. Family members described her as deeply compassionate, someone who noticed people, who helped when she could, who showed up. Her mother, Donna Ganger, later said Renee was one of the kindest people she'd ever known. To understand why ICE agents were in Renee Good's neighborhood that morning, it is necessary to look beyond Minneapolis. In late 2025 and early 2026, the Trump administration sharply expanded federal immigration enforcement across the United States. The Department of Homeland Security announced large-scale operations in major cities. Officials described the effort as an unprecedented surge intended to aggressively target undocumented immigrants and what they called criminal activity. Minneapolis was one of the cities selected. According to administration officials, thousands of ICE agents were deployed nationwide. In Minnesota alone, roughly 2,000 officers were sent as part of what was described internally as the largest immigration operation ever conducted in the region. President Donald Trump publicly defended the strategy, framing it as a response to disorder, resistance, and what he claimed were increasing threats to federal law enforcement officers. This was the political and enforcement environment on January 7, 2026. That Wednesday morning began quietly. Renee dropped her 6-year-old child off at school. Later, Renee and Becca noticed ICE agents operating nearby. According to Becca Good, they stopped their vehicle to support neighbors who appeared distressed by the federal presence. They had whistles. The agents had guns. What happened next has been pieced together through video footage, eyewitness accounts, and official statements. Renee's SUV was positioned sideways on the street. She allowed another vehicle to pass. 3 ICE agents approached. One officer ordered Renee to get out of the vehicle and grab the door handle. She reversed. Then she moved forward. As Renee turned her SUV to the right and began to drive away, an ICE officer standing near the front left side of the vehicle opened fire. 3 shots. Renee Nicole Macklin Good was killed. The officer who fired the fatal shots was later identified as Jonathan Ross. Within hours, federal officials issued a justification. Homeland Security leaders said Renee had attempted to strike ICE officers with her vehicle. They described the shooting as an act of self-defense. President Trump echoed that account publicly. In a social media statement, Trump described the driver as very disorderly, obstructing and resisting, and claimed she had violently, willfully, and viciously tried to run over an ICE officer. He framed the shooting as a necessary response and tied it to broader claims that federal agents were under constant attack from protesters and political opponents. These statements did more than explain the incident.
They reinforced the administration's rationale for the ICE surge itself and signaled that the federal government would stand firmly behind its agents. But as video of the shooting circulated, questions grew louder. The footage showed Renee's vehicle moving slowly. It showed her pause to let another car pass. It showed agents approaching. What it did not clearly show was an immediate threat. Eyewitnesses began speaking publicly. Several said they believed Renee was attempting to leave the scene, not harm anyone. Aiden Perzana, who witnessed the shooting, told PBS NewsHour that at no point did he think anyone was in danger of being hit. Another witness told Minnesota Public Radio that Renee posed absolutely no threat at all. The video did not settle the controversy. It deepened it. Minnesota Governor Tim Walz rejected the federal narrative. Minneapolis Mayor Jacob Frey got further, calling the federal account garbage and demanding that federal agents leave the city. The dispute quickly moved beyond a single shooting. In the days that followed, thousands of people protested in Minnesota and across the country. Most demonstrations were peaceful, though some arrests were reported. In response, Homeland Security ordered hundreds more ICE agents into the area. Minnesota and Illinois filed lawsuits against the federal government, arguing that the deployments violated states' rights under the 10th Amendment. The Trump administration dismissed the lawsuits as baseless and vowed to fight them in court. Renee Good was not charged with a crime. She was not under investigation. She was a civilian who encountered federal officers on her own street. Her death leaves unanswered questions. What level of force is justified during immigration enforcement? Who holds federal agents accountable, and how transparent are those investigations? And what happens when national policy collides with local communities? On January 7, 2026, a mother left home after dropping her child at school. She never came back. Her name was Renee Nicole Macklin Good.